So basically, if you're working in Australia, there are several types of employment arrangements. So I thought that I would kind of break this down for you and tell you a little bit about it because when I first started working, I was quite new to it and I was quite confused. However, I'll break it down and I think you will soon understand and see that it's not super complicated. So I will break down part time versus full time versus fixed term employment versus permanent employment, as well as casual employment. So you can also have a mix of these, so I'll kind of explain it. So first we'll start with part-time employment, and I have some notes here, so I'm going to be referring here periodically. Part-time employment is basically when an employee works fewer hours than a full-time employee. That's basically it. So there's no strict definition of part-time, but normally this is when someone works less than 38 hours per week. And 38 hours per week, I believe, is considered the standard full-time. So in regards to the work schedule, part-time employees, they may work specific hours or slots or times or shifts each week. And they can be set, like a set kind of like day each week, or a set series of days each week where it's always a consistent day and time, or it could be flexible. So maybe on one week you're working these days, on another week you're working these days. So that's really at the employer's discretion and also at the employee's discretion. So one benefit of working part-time is that usually you receive pro rata, which is basically it's payment or entitlement. So you receive pro rata entitlements for benefits such as annual leave and personal leave and public holidays based on the number of hours you work. And in terms of job security, part-time positions can be either permanent or fixed term. And this is normally depending on the employer's needs. So I will kind of talk later on in this video about the difference between permanent and fixed term. For full-time employment, this is basically when you work full-time hours in a standard role. So this is typically 38 hours per week. I was working full-time and I was doing 40 hours per week in my most recent job. So full-time employees would generally be working 5 days per week, so from Monday to Friday. There are a couple benefits of being a full-time employee that you are entitled to. This includes paid annual leave, which I believe is 4 weeks per year. I think it kind of depends on the industry that you're in. But there's basically paid annual leave and there's paid personal leave. So personal leave is either sick leave or carer's leave. There's also superannuation contribution, which is normally I think 10.5% of salary, but this varies, I think. And I believe that this rate of 10.5% for superannuation, it's scheduled or expected to increase slightly. And also, if you're working full-time, you get paid on public holidays. That is if they fall on a regular workday. In terms of job security, like I mentioned, full-time employment can either be fixed term or permanent. However, permanent full-time roles normally provide more stability and better job security. So now I'm going to be breaking down fixed-term employment versus permanent employment. So fixed-term employment is basically when an employee is hired for a specific period of time. So maybe there's a project that's required, so the employer would need you for the completion of the entire project or something like this, but basically it's a specific period. And the end date of the employment is predetermined and it's agreed upon basically when signing the contract. Fixed term employment can basically be full-time, part-time, or casual. But this kind of depends on the nature of the job and the industry and also what the employer kind of wants during maybe that period of time or what they're working towards. So benefits of fixed-term employment are generally entitled to the same benefits as permanent employees, as we previously discussed the benefits for permanent employees. And if the contract is more than 12 months, the employee is usually entitled to most of the same rights as a permanent employee. In terms of job security, there's kind of an end date for a fixed term employment. So there would be less job security compared to a permanent role because essentially your contract is not ongoing and it's not indefinite. However, oftentimes if you have a fixed term, that can lead to a permanent role, and it can basically it can be renewed or extended. That happens fairly often. And permanent employees basically have an ongoing and indefinite employment contract with the company. So they're not employed for a fixed term. Also, permanent employees they're most of the time working full-time, normally. However, they can also be part-time employees. You can be on a permanent contract but be working part-time. You can even be working casual sometimes. But most of the time, permanent employees are employed full-time by organization. So of course, in terms of job security, permanent employees would enjoy higher job security compared to maybe fixed-term or casual workers because they're not bound by a contract that has a set end date. On top of this, they can basically only be dismissed for valid reasons, and normally they must be given a notice of termination, or a pay in lieu of notice. In terms of casual employment, this is a type of work arrangement where employees are hired on a as needed basis. So there's basically, the issue with this is there's no guarantee or ongoing regular hours. So casual employees are not entitled to the same benefits as full-time or part-time employees are. However, they receive a higher hourly wage, which is also known as casual loading. So one issue is that obviously if you're a casual employee, you have unpredictable work hours because shifts can be offered depending on the employer's needs at a particular period in time. So there's no guarantee of ongoing work, and the hours can vary quite significantly from week to week. So there's some unpredictability there. Moreover, casual employees do not receive annual leave or sick leave or personal or carers leave. However, as mentioned, they are compensated for this lack of leave entitlement with casual loading, which is an additional, I believe, 25% above the standard hourly rate. So for example, let's say a casual employee's normal rate is $30 per hour. They might receive $37.5 per hour with casual loading. In terms of termination of employment, casual employees can leave their jobs or they can be terminated without notice. However, if the casual worker has been employed for a long time, they may actually be having some level of protection under the unfair dismissal law. In terms of superannuation, casual employees are actually entitled to superannuation as long as they earn above a certain threshold, which I think is generally about $450 per month as at like 2025. So in terms of job security, casual employment generally offers less job security than part-time or full-time roles because there's no guarantee of ongoing work, and casual workers can have their shifts or hours reduced maybe the next week compared to the previous week. So sometimes they may not even be offered work the next week at all. So it's quite unpredictable. So in terms of job security, there's not as much. So with this video, I hope I was able to give a small breakdown of the key differences in employment. So this is good to kind of know when you're applying for jobs and also when you're reading your contracts, so you have a rough idea of what to expect when you're working in terms of the pros, the benefits, the cons, and also a good understanding of the entitlements. Thanks. I hope this video was helpful, and I'll see you around. Bye.